It's Chris here, the Day-to-Day Apologist. Welcome to part one of my two parts of the history of holidays. Here we're talking about gobble gobble Thanksgiving. Now, if you're watching this in and around, or maybe during Thanksgiving, I want to wish you and your family a very happy, enjoyable, and food-filling Thanksgiving. Make sure you take the time, though, to go out and give somebody a thank you, or just give them something nice. It is Thanksgiving, so don't get caught up in all the commercialism that's going on Black Friday. Enjoy yourself, relax, and have fun. Now, as I mentioned, it's two parts. The first part, today, we're talking about the beginning of Thanksgiving. And the second part, which I'll post on Thursday, we're talking about whether or not Thanksgiving has lasted and has stayed the same, and when it came to be a national holiday, and some other interesting stuff that I think will make you go, that is interesting. Now, let's get into the beginning of Thanksgiving right now. Now, the first mention or documentation of Thanksgiving is actually written by a guy named Edward Wilson. He was a pilgrimer who came on the Mayflower and just wrote a simple paper, like a letter to someone, and he mentioned about a Thanksgiving meal. Now, there are historians out there that, have thrown out rumors that people have actually celebrated earlier than the Pilgrims in 1621, which is when the Pilgrims did it. Before then, and other settlers had done a Thanksgiving. But there's been no documentation or proof of that. So we're going to naturally say this was the first official one. Now, Thanksgiving, though it falls on the fourth Thursday in November, it was probably actually more celebrated by the Indians and the Pilgrims in either the end of September or somewhere around mid-November. Now, I grew up in the Northeast. I had people who watch these videos from the Northeast, and they could tell you this is a good time to do a celebration because after November, the weather just goes winter. And it can be crummy and either just cold or super snowy. And we need to remember the Pilgrims didn't really have any shelter. They kind of showed up and they paid a heavy price in their first year, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now, as everyone knows, famously speaking, the Indians and the Pilgrims were the ones who celebrated the first Thanksgiving. But did you know that the Indians are a tribe called the WAPA tribe, led by their leader, Massasoit? Now, interestingly, the Indians were in and around that area, but they chose to go and help the Pilgrims get settled in after some time passed, because obviously they noticed a big ship coming into the cove of Plymouth. Now, my wife and I went to Plymouth this past summer. We actually visited twice, and the weather is very extreme and very crazy. And I just mentioned about hard winters there. Well, they have hard winters in Plymouth. And the first winter that the Pilgrims were there, they did not have a good winter. In fact, a disease kind of spread through their settlement and killed a lot of the women and some of the children and a few of the men, leaving their numbers down to like 50 people of like 100 or like 150 people. I mean, it really cleared it out. Now, historically speaking, since we now know this information, the drawings and artwork that we see of the Pilgrims and Indians is actually not 100% accurate. There actually was quite a lot of Indians. I'm pretty sure Massasoit brought his entire tribe, which was like 100 people, maybe more. And there, like I mentioned, there was like maybe 7 women and like 50 Pilgrims in total. So the artwork should show a lot more Indians and a lot less Pilgrims. But alas, drawers draw what they want to draw. So that's just interesting information to you. Now, the main purpose of Thanksgiving was, no shocker and surprise, to give thanks to God. That really was the intention of both the Pilgrims, and get this, and the Indians as well. The Indians felt just as strongly about giving thanks to their gods for the provisions in which they were given. Now, the Pilgrims did have a very bountiful season, and that's the reason why they were able to do this. Now, interestingly, and I believe this to be true, one of the reasons that possibly the Indians came to the Thanksgiving feast was around that time, Massasoit would go to the tribes and give peace offerings, and they would in return get peace offerings to stave off war. So I believe that one of the reasons, besides just giving thanks, they came was to be peaceful. Now, interesting closing facts in the first part of this video. The first Thanksgiving meal consisted of venison, which is deer meat, fish, shellfish, leeks, carrots, cucumbers, pumpkins, lettuce, and parsnips. It had no potatoes. They didn't have potatoes at that time. And cranberry sauce, though cranberries were around, the Pilgrims didn't think of making it into cranberry sauce. So sorry, folks, they didn't do that stuff. And pies, don't get me started on pies. They didn't have stoves back then. The sugar, butter, flour, that stuff would not have lasted through their journey all the way out there. And you just can't go to the local grocery store back in 1621 and pick up that stuff. So no pies back then. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure, of course, you like, subscribe, and all those things. And I look forward to seeing all you on Thursday in the second part of my video. God bless. Happy Thanksgiving.